Hey, what's poppin', everyone? It's me again. I know I haven't really made a video in a long time, or at least one where I'm talking in the video, so just wanted to do that. So today I want to talk about a topic that I have been kind of interested in for a while, but I haven't ever really made any videos on it. I haven't actually made like any informative videos ever. They've all just been Minecraft or very random things, but yeah, today I really wanted to kind of do a dive into languages, specifically languages in Europe. And this is by no means like an exhaustive, video on all the different languages and language families in Europe. This is more of like a very broad look at European countries and the predominant language and language family and first level subdivision of those language families. So if you speak kind of an obscure language like Basque or like some kind of Celtic language, sorry, I watched the NBA, so I say Celtic. I'm sorry, but your language will not be represented in this video because I'm lazy, and also MapChart doesn't really allow me to break down countries further. Well, it does, but that would make it more needlessly complicated, and I'm pretty lazy, so I wasn't planning on doing that. But yeah, let's just dive into these maps. Okay, so the first one I made is a very broad look at language families in Europe. And to no one's surprise, the predominant language family in Europe is the Indo-European language family. And Indo-European is a very, very large and broad language family that encompasses most of the languages in Europe, as well as languages in the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent. So Iranian, Persian, whatever you want to call it, North Indian languages, so Hindi, Punjabi, those are all Indo-European. So Indo-European can kind of be split into like the European languages and the Indo-Aryan languages, or Indo-Aryan. Now, obviously this video is about Europe, so I'm just going to be focusing on purely European countries, or at least countries that are like, the majority of them are in Europe. So I didn't include Turkey or the Caucasus countries or Kazakhstan or anything, because I want to talk about those when I'm talking about Central Asia or Western Asia / the Middle East, So today I just wanted to really focus on Europe. Anyways, the map. As you can see, the vast majority of them speak Indo-European languages, but there's a few exceptions, a few notable exceptions. So the first very clear one are Finland, Estonia, and Hungary. And they do not speak an Indo-European language. They speak a Uralic language. So the Uralic language family comes from the east. It comes from Asia. And the ancient Uralians or whatever made their way over to Europe. And their language, I guess, never really died out. Even though genetically the inhabitants of, let's say, Hungary might resemble their neighbors like Croatians and Romanians and Slovakians, their language persisted, and it was never really wiped out by the Indo-Europeans. So Hungarians speak a Ugric language, which I'll talk about later, and Finnish people and Estonians speak a Finnic or Finno kind of language, So, something that's interesting is languages and language families can kind of inform you about ancient ancestry and which groups are linked to each other. So the speakers of Uralic languages are all distantly related to each other, more so than they are to, modern Indo-European language speakers, at least to some degree. But that connection is definitely there. And other Uralic languages are spoken all throughout parts of northern Russia and other areas that I can't remember, but pretty much northern Russia too. So if you look at a better map, not the one I made, but like a more comprehensive map, you'll see that the Uralic language family is scattered all throughout of northern Eurasia and little speckles of it in maybe central Eurasia, whatever you want to call it. So yeah. And the other language family that is spoken in Europe that people kind of forget about is Afroasiatic. And Afroasiatic might not be a term you're familiar with, but everyone knows the languages Arabic and Hebrew. And those are part of the Afro-Asiatic language family, as well as languages spoken in the Horn of Africa. So Cushitic and Hamitic languages are spoken there. The Semitic languages are the ones that contain Arabic and Hebrew, and also Maltese. So the language spoken in Malta is Maltese. And the reason Malta speaks an Afro-Asiatic language is because at one point, there was this whole Islamic empire that ruled a lot of Southern Europe, lots of Italy and that area. And so the people of Malta kind of kept speaking that language, even though eventually, Latin influence from the Indo-Europeans, wiped out a lot of the other languages spoken in southwestern Europe. But Maltese persisted, so it's pretty cool to think about. But yeah, that's it for this map. Let's go on to the next one. So I think this is probably my favorite because it shows the main first level, subdivisions of the Indo-European language family, with one minor exception, which is Slavic and Baltic, which I separated, but they're actually just part of the same language family within Indo-European languages, which is Balto-Slavic. But I separated them because I guess people just tend to do that. That wasn't really a good answer, but whatever. Okay, so anyways, the main language families within the Indo-European language family are Germanic, Italic, and Slavic. Those are the big three. And the Italic languages are also known as Romance languages, better known as Romance languages, really. So, the countries that speak Germanic languages are the Scandinavian countries, so Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, as well as the Western Germanic-speaking countries, so Ireland, the UK, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Austria, and then obviously Germany, which is, the word Germanic and Germany are related, obviously. And then also Belgium, Belgium speaks both kind of Dutch kind of related languages as well as French, but they mostly speak French. So I just put them into the Romance category. And then obviously moving on to Romance languages, we all know Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French. A lot of people don't realize that Romanian is also a Romance language. Now, it's a little split from the other three, but it is still a Romance language. And Moldova here, which is right next to Romania, they also speak Romanian, so they're included in this. The third big one is Slavic, and the most spoken language in Europe is actually a Slavic language. It's Russian, but everyone knows about Slavs. Everyone knows about Russians, Ukrainians, Polish people, but also Serbians and Croatians and Bulgarians. These are all Slavic languages. They all came from the same people, the Proto-Slavic individuals. And then Baltic is a language that kind of like split off from Slavic, or a language family that kind of split off from the Slavic languages. And those are spoken by Lithuanians and Latvians. And the Baltic countries are typically referring to the three countries of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. But as we talked about before, Estonia actually speaks Estonian, which is a Finnic language, which is most closely related to Finnish. So although they are, I suppose, categorized as a Baltic country, they are actually not a Baltic-speaking nation. The other languages or language families within Indo-European are Hellenic or Greek, and Albanian, which is only spoken in Albania and Kosovo. As to why these languages are kind of like isolated like this and don't really have many other prominent languages in their language family, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of historical reasons for it, but a lot of those languages kind of died out. So Albanian is what's known as a language isolate, which means there aren't really any other sister languages in that branch. It's just Albanian. And the reason Kosovo speaks Albanian is because although Kosovo has a very contentious classification when it comes to Serbia and whether or not it's part of Serbia. The vast majority of inhabitants of Kosovo are ethnically Albanian. So they're literally Albanians who speak Albanian. So, yeah. And then, yeah, Greece speaks Greek, a Hellenic language, Hellenic, whatever you want to call it. So those are the other two. And then you still got Malta here, speaks Afro-Asiatic languages. Yeah. All right. I guess that's it for this map. Now, my third map is the most in-depth, and it breaks down these language groups even further. So let's look at the Germanic languages. You've got the Western Germanic languages. So those are German, Dutch, Luxembourgish, and then Switzerland speaks like a quote-unquote dialect of German called Swiss German, and Austria speaks German as well. But, what is considered a dialect and what's considered a language is also a little controversial at times. And sometimes things that are considered dialects of other languages are not super mutually intelligible. And sometimes things that are considered two different languages are more mutually intelligible. So, it's really up to whatever the speakers of that language kind of tend to classify it as. But yeah. And then English, a lot of people associate English with Latin because a lot of our vocabulary is Latin influenced and Greek influenced, but English is a Germanic language. English and Dutch are, I wouldn't say they're very similar, but of the prominent Germanic languages, English and Dutch are the most closely related, or at least Dutch is the most closely related to English. Actually, let me rephrase that. The language that English is most closely related to of the prominent Germanic languages is Dutch. But Dutch is closer to German than Dutch is to English. English's closest language is Frisian or Frisian or whatever you want to call it, which is spoken in parts of the Netherlands. And it's part of the, I guess, Anglo-Frisian group. So if you're an English speaker and you want to learn a new language and you want to have like the easiest possible language you can learn already being a native English speaker, you could try learning Frisian. Now, also, I can't, discount the Celtic languages, which are spoken in parts of Ireland and parts of Scotland and in Wales and even in parts of France, like Brittany. But those are kind of been like dying out a little bit, and they're not very prominent because they've just been kind of a little wiped out. Like I said, I'm not going to cover every single language family in Europe, just the ones that are big enough to have entire countries predominantly speaking them. So yeah, Scandinavian, everyone knows about them. Let's move on to the Romance languages. So the classification of the Romance languages is maybe not as cut and dry as with the Germanic languages. And the reason for that is it kind of operates on a sort of dialect continuum where if you start at one end of the Iberian Peninsula, somewhere in southern Spain or Portugal, and you make your way farther east along, the southern coast and southern parts of France and then to Italy, people in towns, next to each other can understand each other, but the people at the farthest eastern part of Italy wouldn't be able to understand the people from the farthest western part of Portugal. So it's kind of hard to draw, lines between Romance languages. But I suppose linguists tend to put the Eastern Romance languages in their own category and the Italo-Western Romance languages in another category. So within Italo-Western, you would actually have Italian being broken off into its own category within that. But I mean, we're just going for, I suppose, second order or second level subdivisions here. So we're just going to lump that into the quote unquote Italo-Western group. And then Romanian would just be in the Eastern Romance group. Slavic has three main divisions. East Slavic, which is Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian, spoken in those countries. And then West Slavic, which is Polish, Slovak, and Czech, which are spoken in Poland, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. And then you've got the South Slavic languages, which are spoken in the Balkans, in the territory formerly known as Yugoslavia, as well as Bulgaria, which was not part of Yugoslavia. But they all speak South Slavic languages. And then there's not really any further way to break down Albanian or Greek because, I'm just not going to get into that. And then the Afro-Asiatic speaking Maltese people speak Maltese, which is a Semitic language, as talked about. And then, with Uralic, you've got the Finnic group and the Ugric group. So, Hungarians are Ugric speakers, but it's part of the whole Finno-Ugric group, which is Uralic. I would make a video talking about why these languages came to be this way, but I don't really feel like it. So that's the end of the video, I guess. Bye.